Hello, everyone. We are waiting for the president of the Paris Bar, who is on an emergency call. It's just real life catching up. So she'll be doing the keynote address, and there she is.
Hi everyone, sorry for being a little late, but we started with a little call, early call.
Recording in progress.
Ah, bah ça c'est bien, ça commence bien. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, welcome in this auditorium. Welcome in our historic headquarters in the heart of Paris. I'm delighted to have you at home on the Île de la Cité, a place of justice since the 13th century, a place where lawyers are practicing since then. In fact, a place where law meets power, where we organized our best events, where we welcome our special guests. And today you are our special guests. Where we invite thinkers to build alongside with us the future of law. Today, this is exactly what we are going to do all together, pushing forward artificial intelligence when it comes to law and business. You encountered in Paris best experts and makers on Tuesday and Wednesday. Officials shared their visions of our special relationship yesterday in La Sorbonne. Time has come to think even further about the challenges lawyers face every day. You will focus on two main topics this morning. First, how to transform legal landscape with artificial intelligence and cutting-edge technology. Then, how we can unleash the future of business with artificial intelligence and advanced technology. Hot and complex topics that require us to share our knowledge and experience. I would like to thank all the speakers who are honoring us with their presence this morning. A special and warm thank to our Singaporean experts who came down from afar. Since day one, our cooperation is fruitful thanks to our shared willingness to share experiences. I believe we have a lot to learn from your leadership on intelligence, artificial intelligence, and moreover from the way you face innovation. At the end of these 3 days, 3.5 hours of talk, a buffet lunch will be served in our lobby with some French wine and specialities, and I hope you will enjoy it. In the meantime, I wish you a pleasant and brilliant discussion. Thank you.
Well, it is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Alain Ragnaud, who will be the moderator for the first panel, and his participants, if you please will get on the stage. Thank you very much.
So good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you, Pierre-Emmanuel, for the brief introduction, and thank you to La Maison du Barreau for hosting us today. Thank you as well for the delegation to come from such a long way, and we are really happy to have this discussion together this morning with very distinguished panelists that I will have the pleasure as well to introduce you in a few moments. But maybe, before I introduced our expert guest, panelist, I would like to give you a few words about the topic, which is, as you heard from Madame la Bâtonnière, relating to transformation, and transformation being triggered by AI, artificial intelligence, and then we'll have, Moïse on the panel will be explaining the intricacies of this technology And maybe you've heard the difference between analytical AI, generative AI, and then the question is how this new technology is driving transformation. And then when we think about transformation, I think there are like 3 points I would like to put on the table, and my distinguished panelists will be sharing with you their perspective. So what do we mean by transformation? Are we looking at a big transformation or a small transformation? So when we think about big transformation, maybe there is one data point that I would like to share with you, which is this study from Goldman Sachs, where they say that 44% of the legal activities will be impacted by AI. So from that perspective, one may think it's a big change we are looking at. On the other hand, and that's what we've heard yesterday as well, is AI actually a tool, a new tool in the toolbox? And we have so many technologies today. I mean, when you look at the legal tech market, it's more than 2,000 legal tech companies, and we have, some of them on this panel, which is great. So from that perspective, we may think, well, it's an additional tool, so not such a big change. Then the other aspect about transformation is the speed. And here again, just one data point, which is after 3 months since November 2022, when ChatGPT-3 was made available to the public, you had 100 million users. And if you compare to the level of adoption, the speed of adoption of the internet in the 1990s, it took 8 years to reach that level of adoption. So from that perspective, it's something which is of very significant magnitude from a speed. And finally, when we look at transformation, and I think Sophie will be sharing some experience on this, is how easy is it for legal professionals to adopt new technology? Because transformation amounts to change, and we know that human being is difficult to embrace change. And change meaning yesterday you used to work a certain way, but today with those new tools, you need maybe to change your ways of working. And here, one data point, what the Chief Justice of Singapore yesterday shared with us on the alternative fee arrangement. He was saying, well, that's part of the new reality today. You have more and more law firms proposing to client AFA. But I was at the CLOC, Consortium Legal Operations, last October in London, and the observation in the room is that actually today most of the law firms are still providing legal services on hourly rate basis. So can we do more in that respect, in this type of change? So this is what I wanted to share with you in terms of transformation, change. And then let me now give you a few words of introduction about the very distinguished panelists I have with me. So I will start with Sophie. So Sophie is the marketing director at LexisNexis France, and she will share and strategy, and she will explain on strategy, what AI means for her, and also some very concrete experience that she has with some clients that LexisNexis is servicing. Then we have Edouard. So Edouard is a judge at the French Supreme Court, Cour de Cassation. And Edouard was explaining, just before we entered into this panel, his amazing experience, with very many different jobs and always, with a component of technology. And then he will be explaining to you all the great projects that the French Cour de Cassation is running and involving AI and generative AI. So Segway Technology, we have a tech expert, a software engineer, Moïse. And it's great because Moïse will be kicking us off and explaining the intricacies of technology, because I hear many buzzwords, Harvey, but I think it's really good to have a real expert to explain us the very basic element of technology. Last but not least, so Frédéric, and not last actually, because we have our distinguished speaker online with us, Kenway, and I will finish with Kenway. So Frédéric is attorney at law at As Avocat, which is a niche law firm specialized in new technology. And Frédéric has an amazing experience and expertise. He's teaching in a business school in Paris, and then he's interacting with students and trying to figure out what AI means. And he will share with us some very interesting experience that he has seen firsthand in his law firm. And finally, so last but definitely not least, we have Kenway Tan, who is a judge and dealing with technology at the Supreme Court in Singapore. He has 33 years of experience. And then Kenway will share with us some fascinating use cases about how they have been applying AI, notably for calculating damages for personal injury. Or I think the other example you will be explaining is relating to when you have a divorce and you need to quantify the amount of pension that you need to pay to your children. What was done. So with this, I'm super excited and happy again to be moderating this panel, and I would like to give the floor to Moïse, who will be starting with the technology landscape. Many thanks.
Thank you, Hélène. Good morning, everyone, and maybe good afternoon for the one that feel a bit jet-lagged. I know that it should be 3 o'clock p.m. in Singapore now. So I'm Moïse. I'm a CTO of Sapteo, a company, a software editor that is in the top 10 software editor in France. And we are specialized about legal markets, let's say. I'm leading today more than 450 engineers, and I will try to define not what exactly means deep learning, but give you an overview of technologically where we are and what we want to go. As note, I can see the title of this symposium that says Law and Business. I'm more on the business side. I'm the tech guy of the panel. So just give me, as a quick introduction, 2 seconds to try to summarize where we are. So during the 2 last centuries, we tried to save our time and free our time to give more time to our brain to think. Let's say like this. So we've seen a lot of new technologies appearing, and most of the time the idea is to save our time from physical and manual tasks to more cognitive tasks. And so we've started with that years ago, and basically we achieved that. And in less than 2 centuries, we doubled the life expectancy worldwide. So that's something really interesting. And most of the time, what happened is that we automatize what we call low value-added tasks. And in the early 90s, we started with the beginning of what we call AI, that is totally different from where we are today. So in the 90s, AI was more like an expert system. Expert system means that we bring in the same room programmers and experts, and their goal was to try to write rules to make a system, a machine, answer the right response to predefined questions. So that was really accurate in terms of performances because we know the rules. If I have to just get an example, I will get the Deep Blue program at IBM that tried to beat the worldwide best chess player. And to try to beat them, the only way we had at that time was to trying to hard code all the use cases that you can face trying to play the chess game. And so basically, it took ages to try to hard code all that rules. And at the end, we were close to beat what a unique human brain was able to do. It was a good experience. The accuracy was not that bad, but it takes ages to do that. We have now a different approach. The approach tries to mimic what the human brain is trying to do. So that's why we call that a neural network. The idea is to have a unique algorithm, and the only thing we have to do is not to understand the rules, but just provide data to a model, and just based on example and counter example, try to let the machine find the rules by itself. So it's totally different. Where at the beginning our job was to understand the business rules, trying to really focus and be exhaustive on all the business rules. Now we just have to send data. When I say just have to send data, it's not that easy. But it's a lot easier than trying to understand. Let the machine do, trying to find the right trends and trying to find the most pragmatic approach. And if we go that way, we face one issue, because the algorithm that we are using today were created more than 30, 40 years ago. At that time, the difficulties was to feed the model. Feed the model means bringing data. Okay, what does it mean, bring data? First, get sensors to collect it. While we were not connected, to the internet, it was almost impossible to collect the data. So now we are connected, we can collect the data. Second, we need to store the data. We need huge amounts of space to store the data, then compute. And all of that at a decent price that makes affordable for everyone to just ask a simple question that, like, please read this paper to me. So how much are you ready to pay for this service? Almost nothing. But behind this, there is a huge infrastructure to deploy. And so being able to provide as a software editor this kind of service means that we need to reduce the price. And it was almost impossible, and since maybe 30 years, we are just expecting that period of time where the price of just running the application becomes affordable to everyone. How it's possible? Because, and thanks to the cloud. The only way to do that is to mutualize the infrastructure. And so today, so that's what we call the large learning model. So trillions of parameters in the same system. And there is only few companies that are able to pay for that and provide that to the mass. So I think we reached this point where it starts to be okay in terms of business perspective to propose such a service, because we can make money with that. Otherwise, it won't be impossible to use it. And so we are at that period of time in the AI evolution. So two different, really clear approach. First one that was just an expert approach, and at that, as a product manager as well, I will call that the replacement approach. What we did with these rules at the beginning was just replace the human on some task. Now we are more in the augmented approach. So it's really interesting to see the switch. In the augmented approach, the idea is to help our collaborators, our customers, everyone, to just augment their ability to produce. And it's really different because on one side, you have a one-to-one replacement. On the other side, it's just a multiplicative approach. That means that the perspectives now are infinite. This is very interesting. I'll come back to my job today. So I'm a software editor. I'm delivering B2B solutions to legal professionals, lawyers, notaries, corporate lawyers, but as well to real estate agency, to accounting companies, to HR companies, so many, let's say, back office activities. And the history of software edition is mimicking exactly what is the history I just described of AI. We started 30 years ago to the digital transformation. What does it mean? 30 years ago, it was really simple. Bring this piece of paper, transform that in 0 and 1, and put it on an hard drive. So that was digital transformation. Then comes the fact that we digitalize the workflows. Signature workflows, validation workflows, exchange in the company. Then after, we digitalize exchanges between companies. So that's the API approach and things like that. And finally, and it has been really leveraged during the 3 or 4 past years, because of the COVID, we digitalized communications. All of this digitalization are replacement. We replace people by a machine. And now, my job is slightly different based on AI and the generative AI we are facing today. We are more in augmenting the cognitive capacity of our customers. We are changing that world. What we do now is not replacing them, it's just augmenting their capacity to absorb information, bringing them more data and more accurate data. If I say that in other words, my solution is able to read a paper, but more than that, is able to extract relevant information without saying what is relevant and what is not. And it's able to say, okay, what you should do with this information. And at the end of the day, the decision remains a human one. Because my point of view on that part today is that the concept of human in the loop, is still mandatory. It's really still mandatory. Why? Because we already face some, let's say, risks. First one is accuracy of the results that are not totally relevant today. Why? Because this model where we are just bringing example and counter-example to train a neural network is under the fire of biases. I mean, if you send the wrong data, the response you will get won't be the good one. So accuracy of results is really a problem. And I can see as the business part of the law-end business, there is 2 other issues. First one is data property, of course, and I'm sure you all see what I mean. Who is owning what, and loss of data. If you send your data to the cloud, are you sure that you keep your own secrets? So that's a fact. What I can see, and I will conclude by that, what I can see arriving today is an answer to each of these questions. One is probably in the room, the legal part. This is coming, and you can see every day in the newspapers that there are progress on that. This is really interesting, and we are really expecting the result of that. Then, from a pure technology point of view, we can see secure instances of this large learning model appearing day after day. So, from a national point of view, we have our own instances coming, but we have a European one, and you can determine when it's secure for you or not. So this is the legal part. Then there are specialized instances of these models as well that are appearing, because if you use the GPT today, it's able to answer everything, including what you don't care. And probably you would like to have someone in front of you that knows your business at least as good as you. And so and I know that some of my colleagues here are working on that, trying to train models specialized on legal. So this is interesting. And the last part is, I can see an initiative like Auto GPT. Today, when you talked to this chat, you are asking questions. At the first answer, probably you won't get exactly what you want. And so you will ask question and question and question to refine. This process of refinement can be done by AI as well. This is really interesting. This is really, really interesting because the accuracy of the answer will dramatically improve if we go that way. So just to conclude, we are facing kind of a tsunami. This is coming. There is 2 approaches. First one is build a big dam to protect yourself from that. Okay. Second approach is, I'm coming from the south of France, close to the Mediterranean Sea, sorry. I will get my surfboard and I'll try to surf it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moise, and fascinating to hear from replacement to augmentation and concluding with some risk that we've heard about yesterday. And so you were saying, we are having this symposium about law and business. You are more on the business side of things. And I turn now to Sophie, and I think, Sophie, as head of strategy at LexisNexis, you are also looking at it from a business perspective. So please, really looking forward to listening to you now.
Thank you, Alan. Good morning, everybody. I am indeed the strategy director at LexisNexis. LexisNexis, who is one of the leading companies for legal information and analytics. And I will try, probably not as well as Mo is, to talk about LLMs. I have no tech background, but I will try at least to give you an idea of how we envision AI and cutting-edge technologies to help legal professionals perform their work. The first thing I would like to say is that the use of cutting-edge technology, and namely with the rise of SaaS technologies and AI, has already transformed the landscape of and the way professionals practice the law. Indeed, these technologies have enabled the legal practitioners to increase their productivity, as research, analysis, or drafting is now more efficient. And also, the benefit for an increase in legal security and quality of output, because legal professionals now can use already decision tools that help them analyze the legal data and find the most powerful arguments to build a winning legal strategy. LexisNexis products, for instance, have used AI, including natural language processing, or NLP. I will use the acronym, it's simpler, for some time. In France, our flagship legal offering, Lexis 360 Intelligence, which is very similar to the Lexis Plus tool in the US, uses AI already. And I will give you two examples of how it works. The first relates to legal research. Through the use of NLP and machine learning, the AI-powered search engine can understand the intent behind a user's query and provide results that match the requirements. It therefore already improves the accuracy and relevance of such results. The second example relates to brief analysis. Lexis Explore, the brief analysis solution that's embedded in Lexis 360, uses AI to identify similar decisions to those cited in the document analyzed and provide suggestions for crafting stronger legal strategies. These are a few examples of what we can do today with AI using especially NLP. With over 2,000 technologists and data scientists at LexisNexis Tech Hubs around the world, we are continuously innovating. NLP has been and continues to be an important area of focus for us. LLMs like ChatGPT, but not only, there are many LLMs, are particularly useful for NLP. And we see tremendous potential for the use of these technologies in our products and solutions to address legal professional use cases. I will provide 4 examples of use cases that are relevant to legal professionals. First, in the area of legal research. LLM can help find relevant legal information by searching through legal data and provide accurate and up-to-date information. Second, in a document analysis, LLMs can help review and analyze legal documents such as contracts, agreements, and case law. It can quickly identify key issues, provisions, and potential risks within the document. In legal drafting as well, LLMs can assist the drafting of legal documents such as contracts, briefs, and memos. It can provide suggestions for phrasing, grammar, and structure. And the last example I will give you is the area of due diligence for M&A operations. LLMs can help review financial statements, contracts, and other legal documents to identify potential legal and financial risks. These are only a few of the use cases that are relevant to legal professionals. But as Moïse has already mentioned, there are a number of important issues raised by LLMs that we need to tackle. LLMs are only as good as their training data. Therefore, they can create very well articulated answers that are pure hallucinations, and they can quote citations that do not exist. But if we use them on our proprietary content, that is totally valid and written by experts in law, we can deliver accurate, comprehensive insights that can be sourced. LLMs also raise potential issues in terms of data privacy, and this is an important point because we want to protect the privacy of our customers so that their proprietary search history and usage information are not revealed externally. As Moise also mentioned, LLMs raise IP issues around the use of the information that is poured into these LLMs by their users. And we need to protect our customers' IP and our own against that risk. In the use of LLM, as in any other AI technology, LexisNexis abides by relaxed responsible AI principles to secure transparency, prevent reinforcement of biases, and respect privacy. Last week, LexisNexis announced the launch of a private beta version of a new generative AI-powered product, Lexis Plus AI, that is now available on the US market. It has been developed by leveraging different LLMs combined with our search engine and allow 3 main use cases: research in conversational mode, summarization, and drafting. This very first product version will continue to evolve over time with the help of customers from leading law firms such as Baker McKenzie or Reed Smith and many others. Co-construction is essential to make sure we develop the use cases that meet our customers' needs and help solve their pain points. In France, the progressive opening of public data and specifically case law that should be fully effective by the end of 2025 creates an opportunity at relatively short term. Some 3 million case law will be annually available against 250K today. This primary big data, combined and linked with our own proprietary content of some 25 million documents, will serve as training material for our LLM-based use cases. To summarize and finish with, we think that the LLM technology is well suited for a wide set of use cases that will evolve over time, and we will continue working on this technology to provide secure and powerful decision tools to our users by combining the use of this cutting-edge technology and the unique LexisNexis content. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. I mean, amazing to see, commonalities with what Moise was explaining. So the fact that, what we've heard, so, there are many LLM technologies, so not only Harvey, so I think it's a very important point. Second point is relating to the quality of data, garbage in, garbage out. And then finally about the risk. And, again, just planting the seeds for the Q&A session that will be following. So thank you again, Sophie, for this really great presentation. And now I will turn to Frederick, who is working in a law firm, and he will explain to us, how those tools have been helping you and your colleagues and clients from a practical standpoint. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. So I'm Frederick Picard. I'm the head of the litigation department in Haas Law Firm. We are very specialized in IT and digital law issues, and it's very interesting when I heard my colleague because they try to apply the EI to normally the EI is very specific on one field, and you say that now we can apply the EI in interdisciplinary field, and the thing here, I think, is the experience of the people that it could bring to the EI. But before going there, I would like to first start with history. The idea of using algorithmic logic to perfect the exercise of justice seems to have been formulated by Leibniz in 76 years. He was a German philosophist, and he dreamed of a logic would be an algorithmic calculation. He called that the calculus ratiocinator. And then 3 years after, you have Bernoulli, who wondered the relevance of using probability to resolve questions raised by the law. And finally, in the middle of the 20th century, you have the American jurist Lee Lovinger, who proposed the term jurymetrics to designate the use of statistical correlation and probabilistic model in justice. And here we are. I mean, today, we're talking about algorithms applying to AI. This is marvelous. But when we think of the purpose of the AI, should we talk about helping human or replace human? That's why that what we call weak or strong AI. And it's a good question, because when you see 1,000 scientists who sign an open letter to make a moratorium to say wait 6 months in order to put regulatory framework and ethical framework on AI, that means something. And I remember you that, for instance, Geoffrey Hinton have announced his departure from Google because he wants to warn the danger of generative AI. That's true. So I love the expression of my partner, Gerard Haas, who said, with the AI, the junior associate will be dangerous, but the senior associate will become gods. That's funny. And this is pretty funny, because when you give an AI, a generative AI, to a junior associate, what's going on at the end? What is the result? Do you think you have the background to analyze the error of the system or to analyze the best result, even if you already have a prior work made by the soft designer? That's the problem. And the most of the time, when you give that to a junior associate, there are less reflection than if they start from a white paper. I think all the lawyer here already give models contract to their junior associate, and the most of the time you see some very big error on it. And I think this is kind of the same. So the purpose of this discussion is does this legal tech really help or not? Yes, of course, it's help. We have a lot of French software editors in France. If I remember, there are some, also Captain Contract, Smart Contract, etc., who analyze the different contracts, who generate contracts. And yes, it can be helpful, but it can replace the experience. And for good reason, because the trend of the AI is not just provide anymore just an information, an accuracy information, it's to generate results. And finally, the lawyer who works with that just enter in a sort of a bubble effect, because he will trust more and more the AI. And I think that's the problem. This is why the experience is very essential. But of course, I want to assure the junior associate that they can still work, because we will need them as we're getting older as a senior associate, you know. So, okay. As I said, for good reason, the trend of AI has moved toward to predictive justice by probabilizing the chance of success or failure of case, determining amounts of conviction, and even the ranking of argument by relevance. That's what proposed LexisNexis, apparently, and the associated legal text. We have some kind of tools in front, which is said case law analytics. We have predictives, and we try to use it in our law firm. And sometimes the results it's very difficult to analyze the results. Yes, sometimes for the information you find a decision which is very relevant. But the evaluation is asked to think about it. And finally, even if you saving times by using the solution by finding some results, you will lose time to analyze the result and to see if it fits with your case. And so I'm kind of mitigate for the moment of the using of the AI, maybe because it's not strong enough, and I very wait for the next step. One other point is what would be the situation what would be the impact of making predictive tools available to courts? And I see two issues. First, we already talked a little bit about that. This is the algorithmic biases, which may arise from the side of the designer. As we all know, we have cognitive biases, which are a distortion of the way the information is processed in relation to rational behavior or reality. And after you have the statistical bias, the data, the accuracy of the data, and we already talked about that with GIGO. But you have also the omitted variable bias, which is the omission of certain variable. We can therefore compromise the reliability of the result. This can reinforce the effect of discrimination. Then you have the selection bias, which appear when the characteristics of the population studied are different from those which general population, and you can strongly influence the result of the algorithms. And you have also endogenous bias, which is finally the fact that the machine is feeding by old data and don't consider the future expectation, which are maybe more important to explain the present event. This bias may lead you, me, and maybe the judge for the evaluation, for instance, of the damages or even in the criminal sanction, may lead to some errors because in the side of the designer you may have this bubble effect. We all remember the MIT report regarding the trolley problem, and we see that the result changed regarding the culture. And of course, each person has its own culture and may already have this, what we call the sheep or sheep effect. That means that we follow what the other is doing. And all this can influence the design of the AI. we saw some application with an American solution which is called Compass, which was the correctional offender management profiling for alternative sanction. And where the African and American population were assigned by the algorithm without effect being naturally intended by the designer. But on the contrary, we can also relate the art solution in UK, which were the harm assessment right tools. It's a UK solution developed by Cambridge University, who predict the risk of recidivism and the possibility of a reintegration program. This system was withdrawn in 2020, although the software reportedly outperformed human judgment. So, you see, we have the both side. And the second issue was the independence of each other. I remember we're doing law. Each case is specific. And uniformization of the rules may lead to predictable decision, even if the fact may be different. So that's great for legal security. But what about the role of our role, the role of the judge, of making, evolving the law, change the case law, if we're applying always the same rule to everybody? And I think this is really important. And we all here to state that the EI should not affect the independence of the judge. And that's why we are here, and that's why we recommend to maintain, of course, human oversight. I don't think we should only limit with the human in the loop. You should have also human over control and human in control, especially in the design. That's why we need a legal expert for the design of the EI, etc., etc. And to avoid the black box effect, I think we need to apply the principle of transparency, explainability, and accountability. Why? Because there will be always people who will have a look on the algorithms and to analyze the effect of the algorithm, and we will fight against the different bias I just have explained. And good news, the proposition of the European Union Regulation Artificial Intelligence Act contains some of this principle. And they actually discuss it today. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frederic. So fascinating on biases and the performance of AI and all the watch outs. You've been mentioning what is great to hear, and that's what we could hear as well yesterday. There are challenges, but also solutions. So really, really good to hear, and it would be very interesting probably to come back to this point you mentioned about independence, bias, accuracy, and that's a very nice segue then to turn the microphone to Edouard. When we were preparing for this panel, you had some similar points, but I guess before moving to this specific point, you will explain all the amazing projects that you are currently running at the French Supreme Court. Edouard, floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. And I'm also very happy to be here to explain the AI projects driven by the French Court of Cassation. So, as Alan mentioned, I am a junior judge at the Court of Cassation, and I am responsible for the artificial intelligence projects driven by the court. In fact, at the Court of Cassation, we have been active users of AI for a few years now. I think we really use AI since 2017. And at first, it has been in the context of a big, very important project for the Court of Cassation, which Sophie has mentioned, which is that in France, there is now a principle stating that all court decisions shall be published on the internet and freely available as open data. And in fact, the Court of Cassation is responsible for this online publication for all civil and criminal cases in France. So not only the court decisions, but the decisions of the Court of Cassation, but also all the decisions of the civil and criminal courts in France. So basically, in order to achieve this goal, we had a very strong need to be able to pseudonymize court decisions, which means that we intend to remove some elements of the documents in order to make it harder to identify people. So basically, we remove names, addresses, and other direct identifiers. So we had this need to identify these elements in the decisions and in order to remove them. And as has been mentioned by Moïse, a few years ago, the only solution was rule-based. It was to identify the rules in order to recognize a name or an address in a decision. But then we realized that it would be easier, and in fact quite easy, to achieve this goal with better results thanks to artificial intelligence. And so a few years ago, we have built an in-house team of data scientists. So we hired 2 data scientists and a developer, and we bought graphical processing units in order to have the technical possibility to manage these projects. And we already had a very important database of court decisions. We had a database of 2 million court decisions. So we used this database and our data scientists and our computers in order to have a pseudonymization tool which works very well. And it was also, for us, our first step into the use of artificial intelligence. So this project was not very complex for an artificial intelligence project. But since we already used generative AI, because we used a named entity recognition tool, which was the final aim of this project, to recognize names or addresses and so on. But we also trained a language model with 2 million court decisions in order to improve the results. And this training of the language models was already generative AI. So it was our first project, and then we have tried to launch and manage several AI projects at the Court of Cassation. One of the first projects has been to help us direct the request to the several chambers of the Court of Cassation. So, as I said before, the Court of Cassation is the Supreme Court in France for civil and criminal cases. And in fact, there are 5 different civil chambers at the Court of Cassation, depending on the matter of the case. And so we had a database with thousands of requests, and of course we knew to which chamber these requests had been directed. So we trained an algorithm with this data, and it works also quite well. So of course we still have human supervision by judges, but it helps us really to gain some time, and it's easier. So also this project was not very difficult from a technical point of view. We also have launched more, say, interesting or complex projects with say, more semantic complexity. So just to give a very quick overview, but of course we can discuss later. We've launched a project on the search of divergences between court decisions, which is of course really linked with the core mission of the Court of Cassation, which is to harmonize the interpretation of law. So, of course, it's very important for the Court of Cassation to identify where there are divergences in the interpretation of law in order to reflect on this divergence and, if necessary, maybe to precise or to change its case law. So it is very complex, semantically speaking, this project, and we do not have, for now, results that are really that we can use directly. But this project has helped us to build a tool which helps to search for similarities between court decisions, which also improves the research, so the documentation mission of the court. So, and this tool, in order to search for similarities, already works quite well. And so we also have other projects, namely in order to generate keywords. Let's say it's a labelization of court decisions, and also to summarize court decisions. And regarding this aspect, as also my fellow panelists have said before, we also see that there is a revolution right now, because, as I said, all these projects have been fully driven in-house. And now we see that indeed there has been a huge improvement in trained models like ChatGPT, trained with a huge amount of decisions, with also a very huge amount of human work to train these models. And now we see that it's something that we cannot do alone, of course. So we are trying also to assess the consequences of this revolution, and we'll try, just as an example, to compare our results with the results of ChatGPT on summarization of court decisions and so on. So I don't want to be too long, so just to say quickly that we have two main objectives in this AI project. First, the objective is to help the Court of Cassation in its judicial activity. So as I said, it can be simple tasks such as help in the direction of request, or more complex tasks as help in the identification of divergences and so on. So first mission, first objective is to help the judicial activity. And second objective, which is also very important, and I also refer to what has been said before, is to improve the expertise of the Court of Cassation as a Supreme Court for civil and criminal cases, to improve their expertise in order to have really very good reflection on the ethical aspects of the use of AI. So I agree with what has been said before. We really have to assess the benefits and also the risk in order to have a use of AI that is fair, transparent, and that really improves the judicial activity, and also to avoid the risk. So we believe that by having this expertise at the court, it helps us to have an interesting view on regulation, ethical aspects, and so on.
Thank you very much, Edouard. Really fascinating to listen to the intricacies and your level of understanding of technology and 70 complexities. And I like the way you depicted the benefits. So it's benefits for the court. And that's a segue to, give the floor to Kenway, because Kenway will now explain us some use cases, not in terms of benefits, not for the judiciary in Singapore. I'm sure you have some benefits there, but also, benefit for the end user of the law, layman person. So can we really, looking forward to listening to you now. Floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you. Once again, Alan, I want to thank you and the organizers for accommodating me, for being difficult and appearing remotely as opposed to being there in person with the rest of you. As I've mentioned, I work under the supervision of the Chief Justice Menon, as well as Chief Executive Judica. And we belong to a group within the judiciary that looks after transformation and innovation. Now, just another small little correction. I'm not a judge. I am in charge of transformation and innovation. I was previously a chief prosecutor looking after prosecution. So I've got a broad overview as to what the legal ecosystem needs in terms of technology. And I've actually been working on various legal tech measures for actually all in all about 33 years since the time I first started getting involved as an undergraduate. Now, the work we do in Singapore, there is the artificial intelligence aspect, but there is also, as the title of today's panel says, cutting edge technology. So I'm going to start first with the cutting edge technology. So we've implemented certain simulators, and these simulators are really based on the more traditional decision trees. And I'll explain why we think that for some of these things, the decision trees work better. These decision trees help us give out simulations as to what is the likely outcome in certain motor accident configurations. Were you at a T-junction? Were you in a car? The other vehicle is a motorcycle. You specify all those. You tell us whether or not the lights were in your favor. And if you answer truthfully, the simulator will then tell you it could be that in this situation, you are liable to, you have contributed to the accident by 30%, but the other party was responsible by 70%. If you then go on to explain the injuries you suffered, if you then go on to say you had a fractured bone, you had whiplash, and you then explain what sort of treatment you required, what sort of surgery you required, again, we will give you an estimate, a non-binding estimate, right, to say that this sort of injury could attract damages at approximately this amount of money. Now, what we hope that these simulators do is it could divert cases so that parties can settle without filing a case in the court. Right? And this is something that we think is not quite artificial intelligence, but it can move the needle. It can be very helpful to citizens as well as motor insurers. Now, we're thinking of expanding this to deal with maintenance cases. This is where a party is seeking contribution, typically from because the husband is refusing to pay for the child's upkeep, generally after a divorce. And we are experimenting with how we can best do the same kind of simulation to say the child is at this level of education, the child has these special medical needs, what might be an amount of maintenance that would be a fair amount for the father to contribute to the child. Now, moving on very quickly to AI, we're experimenting with quite a few different use cases. Access to justice is one that intrigues us the most. How can we use AI to help citizens understand better what are their legal rights and obligations, right? And how do we do this? Well, as a court, we cannot give legal advice, but we can certainly provide information. So we want to provide information. And so far, we've had some success experimenting with generative AI platforms that will take some of our existing handbooks and guides that we already have and process these through a chatbot AI in order to deliver this to people that might want to put in plain language questions in a chatbot. We also think, as Sophie, I'm sure will be very happy to hear, we also think that there is much possibility for this sort of AI to help in legal research. So what we are hoping to get at some point in time is that the researcher, it could be a judge, it could be an assistant helping a judge, can put in a plain language question, and on the basis of that, the AI comes out with a research brief Now, the officers involved will still be responsible for checking the accuracy of it, but if you can get a good research, first cut of a research brief that goes beyond Boolean searches, that goes beyond search connectors and gives you contextual answers in accordance with the questions you pose, we think that it can also move the needle in terms of making the law more discoverable. We also think that maybe there is use in having AI help us in evidence review. So if you give an AI 50,000 pieces of email, and then you want to ask it a question to say, tell me how many times John objected to Adam's proposal, right? We have seen that the AI can actually help provide these answers, and it appears to us also that the hallucinations can be quite well controlled. Finally, under the AI part of things, we also agree that AI might be able to assist in drafting and review of documents. And I would just end off with one quick remark that even with all this generative AI out there, we don't think that this makes even first-year associates redundant, because what then becomes important is these first-year associates, or in fact, any lawyer, in order to make good use of these tools, they need to know how to write the prompts to the generative AI. So prompt engineering is apparently likely to be a very big thing. And in our own use and our own experimentation, the quality of the output you get from generative AI depends tremendously on how well you craft your prompts. Right? So, Alan, I am at 6.5 minutes. You gave me 6 minutes. I apologize. I owe you half a minute.
Amazing. Thanks a lot for the very sharp, crisp, few words of the great things that you are doing. And you were, going back to junior associate and prompt engineering, which, from my perspective, go back to one of the key themes that we've heard across the board, which is data. Going back to data and quality of data. So I would like to ask to the panel. So how do we ensure the quality of data? And can you tell us more about, data? Where do we get the data from? Like ChatGPT-3. What is the data like? If you can, demystify a bit, how we collect data and how do we ensure that the data, have of the right level of quality, so that then the output is a good one?
So I won't talk for everyone, but at least on our side, what we do. Basically, we have humans. I mean, we address notaries in France, and we provide solutions for notaries. And we're proud to say that 80% of the notaries' offices are using our solutions. And why? Because we have content. We have content to provide inside the solution. And this content is there since more than 30 years. And we have internally more than 15 notaries that read every day all the news and bring that to the data. So that's the first part. So that ensures the accuracy. Then after, we are looking for to benefit from generative AI. To look at, so this is for the pure legal content, but on the other side there is other type of data that can help. The data is the usage that we have in our system that has been performed over the last 30 years. So it's a bit different. It's more like you as a notary, you'll be used to work in a different manner than your colleague, and we know that. And our system is able to say, okay, you faced with this situation, you will probably send an email, or you will probably call someone, and this is different than your colleague. And we can analyze that based on your behavior to help you and try to reformat the user interface of the solution to directly propose what you should do or what you should have done based on your proper usage. This type of data is not personal data. And so this is really easy. I was talking about sensors at the beginning of the speech. This is basically what we do. We collect all the clicks, all the usages. We put that in our own private cloud, hosted by ourselves. So this is really a French-based thing and our own engineer, no one from the outside. put the data all together and try to extract global behavior and personal one. And this is really interesting because we bring two different type of benefits to our customers. The first thing is, okay, what you should have answer to this situation globally is this, but in your case, usually you do that. And you have this view, these two different views, and this is interesting to see that most of the time we know better about our customers' behavior than themselves. And coming back to the data, the thing interesting is most of the time they're afraid to send this data to the cloud. So this is a huge question. And if I just say, okay, Google, in the room, probably all the phones will light up. So that means that your data is already everywhere. So don't fear more than what is the reality.
Amazing about the behavior, and it reminds me, I mean, I used to work in the industry, in the white goods industry, washing machine, IoT, Internet of Things. And we could predict when, our customer will be buying their next washing machine, for example, which is, amazing on the one hand, but on the other hand, I'm looking, in the room with experts in privacy, it's quite scary. Frederick, do you want to say a few words on this question around quality of data?
I mean, this is a task of the designer. So the thing is how you can onboard the specific data in a specific field, because the generative AI in law is actually applying to many fields. And so my question is, do you have special processing for each field or special rules for each field, or do you have general rules for all of the fields?
This is a good question. We try to not go that way nowadays. I mean, you talked about the name entity recognition. So this is easy for an address or a name. If we start to talk about clause in a contract and the fact that the clause is active or not, it's a lot more difficult. And what we just ambition is to say, okay, here maybe there is a risk. Just point out where the risks are, but there is no final decision. It's more, I will give another example. 3 years ago, we were in discussion with a doctor in law in the south of France university, and this guy was saying, okay, I should be able to predict not the result of a prosecution. It's more if, based on the data in the file, if it's okay for you, or from a financial perspective, more interesting to go directly to prosecution or to negotiation. Nothing more. Yeah. Nothing more. So nothing to the final decision. It's more how much you should engage yourself in this file or not. And even that was really difficult. So it's really something really specific. And it's linked to the geography, basically, because you know that there is a kind of hierarchy in the legal decision, and there is biases, but I would say trends in the results that depends on the people, and we are not able to modelize the people. So the idea is to just say, okay, we will try to give you a high level overview of the level of implication or energy you should have to put in that.
So, very interesting, cost-benefit analysis. Kenway, you want to step in, please? And you're on mute.
So, Alan, I think that, the old adage in computer science that garbage in, garbage out applies just as much for generative AI as anything else, right? So what is generally a bit unknown to most people is how the engines really work. But what we can control is the quality of the input that we give the engine, and how much we need to make sure that the results are controlled, no hallucination, no cross-pollination across multiple documents. It really depends on the context. So I spoke just now about legal research. Now, legal research, strangely enough, I'm actually a little less bothered because the lawyer has still ultimately to be responsible for checking that the output of the generative AI is giving him information that he should take to court, right? But for other documents, for example, for the access to justice piece, we are finding that we need to be very careful. We need to give curated content that has been edited carefully so that there is minimal chance of hallucinations. And when we do that, we get very, very high quality output from the generative AI. So we found that we got some very strange answers with one test that we conducted just this morning, for example, right? But when we actually looked at the source document, we could see why that was the case. So garbage in, garbage out. You make sure the quality of your data is very good. You make sure that you can control it as far as possible. I think you can get very usable data out of generative AI. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may add something on this, I totally agree with what has been said. You can train your generative AI on quality data. That's the first point. I think also the quality of the prompt will also derive in a qualitative or not answer. So this is also something that probably has to improve. And the last thing that's very important is the sourcing, is the fact that you get an answer, but you can always verify and access to the source. And that's the approach that we have chosen at LexisNexis, that to always give the possibility for the user to access the document and verify for himself. And that's why we are using, for now, because we are experimenting like everybody else. I mean, we don't have the final product yet and the magic, secret sauce, but we are experimenting. And what we do is we combine the search engine with the LLMs to make sure that we'll still control the answer that is going to be provided by the LLM also. That's the way we approach it.
Yeah, fascinating. So if I, Sophie, may build on your point around, so prompting is very important. And we've heard the word prompt engineer. So I mean, from your perspective, does it require like a specific skill set, or is it just learning by doing, or can you tell us a bit more about this?
I'm not sure I have the answer on that one, but definitely I think it will require probably some training to make sure that, and even if you just test it yourself, you will see that when you try a first prompt, then you get an answer, and then you try to correct the way you've asked the questions, and then you see an improvement in the answer. So I guess that's probably an area for improvement, but that's only a guess.
Yeah, on that part, if I may, how we do is we have a business expert to annotate the documents. So that's how we feed the model. Then after, I was talking about the usage. We are tracking the usage that has been done of the suggestion we put on the table. And we get back that to the back office, put that back in front of our experts to reanalyze if the correction is valuable to the model or not. So it's kind of loop, and continuously improvement loop. So that's why we try to just suggest today, nothing more. And we give a percentage of accuracy that is valuable for what it is, nothing more. And we know that we really need to focus on that part, the quality of data, and we put, once again, human in the loop to check.
So, and when, a very interesting point on quantifying the outcomes, the output. And it reminds me, an experience about a tool called Relativity when I was doing audit antitrust risk management system. And then I remember, the concern of the Group General Counsel, a big organization, American company. And she was really concerned, say, okay, if we leverage this tool, it's great. You have a big, upside on the cost. But what, how do I know that the machine output will be as good as, a top-notch expert in antitrust? And then, so this tool obtained a certification from the EU, and they made some testing. They compared the output of the machine and the output of, the lawyers of the EU Commission. So I'm just curious to understand, across the board, is this something you are looking at, how to, not only measure the performance of the tool from an output perspective, and also trying to get some certification from authorities saying, this has been validated?
Well, and I think it's really a very interesting answer, but also sorry, a very interesting question, but I don't think also I have the answer. It's precisely, I think the questions which we have identified as crucial, and we want to improve our expertise to have, let's say, the best answer. So, of course, also it. I didn't mention it, but we also have an ethical charter on the use of AI in judicial systems, which has been published by the Council of Europe, and which reminds the principles of transparency and so on. And indeed, it is very important to have good understanding of this system in order to have a good use of them. And there are several solutions. It may be certification, but it may be also a strong assessment of the use of this system. So I think that there may be many solutions, but as long as the risk is kept in mind, I think.
Very nice. And so you mentioned the word risk, which is one topic we've heard quite a lot about. So I'd be really interested to understand from your perspective what you've seen in your reality. So what is, the biggest risk and how you are trying to deal with that risk and manage that risk?
If I may, I just have a question for the designer. Do you make, a risk assessment on the impact of legal and ethical issues on your software, on your EI? Because in the purpose of the European regulation, they ask for a risk assessment on the privacy data, but they don't make an assessment on the ethical issues. And as we see, the transparency, the bias, the explainability is very important when we create an AI. And so this is my question. I'm just wondering if you make this kind of assessment.
I can try and answer that very important question. What I can say is that we have a very strong policy on this at group level. And that's what I mentioned earlier. It's our responsible AI principles. And so we have guidelines, and we have to make sure that we abide by these rules. So I can't give you the practical details of how it works, but I know that this is something that is really closely scrutinized, and that's something that that is very important to us. So
yeah, because I'm just saying that because when we see, we can take an example, for instance, like Google. We know that all the technology that Google have put in place may have been misused because they didn't make this kind of assessment before. So maybe this kind of assessment is kind of guarantee to preserve people of the specific usage on the solution.
So, yeah, very on the bias, probably one of the hot topic, and in the design process. So I think we have how many minutes left? 15? Okay, 0. Not even because I wanted, and apology for the question to the room. It's very interesting to also listen to you and see if there is any reaction about what has been discussed. Yes, please.
Thank you. As a lawyer, it's always great to be able to talk, excusez-moi, confrère, with operational people that deal with operational issues. And I would like to think about prompts. And in particular, I believe it was a statement that you made, Moise, about the fact that if you want I'm talking about generative AI products now. We can say, we don't have to refer to specific names, but the better the prompt, the better the output, or the opposite of garbage in, garbage out is quality in, quality out, and which leads me to this sort of operational question. A good prompt will potentially contain data, a lot of data. Where does this data go in these systems? Is it added to the trillions of parameters of data that the generative AI is using in order to generate responses? Because that prompt could include very confidential data. And if it goes into the system, then very clever operatives out there could then also seek to extract that confidential data from the system. That's my question.
Yeah, so this is a really good point. And today, if you are talking about generative AI,